Hey folks, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson of HuskerBigRed.com, and my co-host as always is Danny Gillette of thegreatcornholio.org. And it's been a wild week for Nebraska football fans. We've got a new head coach, we've got transfers, decommitments. Obviously, we're on this show where we're not going to talk about the whole Mickey Joseph situation. You can see the release and the news reports from the Lincoln, police department, and we're just going to let that stuff speak for itself. But there is a lot of stuff going on this week, and yesterday was not a great day for Nebraska football fans. The two top items to me, the Malachi Coleman decommitment and Ernest Hauschman entering the transfer portal. So Danny, which one of those things surprised you more, Hauschman or Coleman?
Houseman, because I thought he would potentially stay with the Nebraska football program. Now, there is a chance that he is testing the waters and could come back, but being a kid from Columbus, Nebraska, I thought he would potentially stay. The Coleman thing doesn't surprise me, nor does DeColdis Crawford surprise me in terms of the transfer portal, because I think a lot of that was tied with Mickey, and now that's a different situation, and players have decided to make their choice on that.
Yeah, and it's interesting with Malachi Coleman that he announced his decommitment. I mean, I'm not shocked that it happened, but it does still seem to be some hope there. Matt Rule's going to visit him today, make an in-home visit with Malachi Coleman. He said that yesterday in an interview with Rivals. He said that Nebraska is still in the mix, and right now it's kind of a late time to be decommitting. And you can see all these guys entering into the transfer portal. There's not a lot of a lot of these programs aren't going to have a ton of numbers, so I don't know that he's going to have options for sure, but I don't think there's going to be as many options. But he's also talked about taking his recruitment into the next signing period, because he's not enrolling early, so he doesn't need to sign in December. He can sign in February or whatever, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's what happened. We'll see with Matt Rule. I mean, he doesn't have a receivers coach yet, and I know obviously this whole Mickey Joseph thing has kind of played into that somewhat. They were supposed to talk the day everything went down, and that didn't happen. And so we'll see how that all works out. But there's a lot of staff changes to come. But I do think the Hauschman move did surprise me, that he's an in-state kid. But at the same time, it shouldn't surprise anybody anymore, because and I'm not trying to, I have no inside knowledge of this or anything, but I almost guarantee you that some people from another school or somebody was telling them, hey man, you look at all this NIL money. If you get out there, you can get a market for yourself, and who knows, maybe you could go to Georgia, or what I mean? Maybe he could go somewhere else and, get a big payday. So it doesn't necessarily mean he's not coming back, but I think this is going to be the new norm in college football. I mean, it's like, Missouri had the Luther Burden, who was one of the five-star wide receiver, and they had to pay him an NIL deal to keep him out of the transfer portal. So this is the way that the world works. And, so I don't think that we should be shocked about, anything. I don't think it's, Hauschman is a bummer, because he's a guy that, everybody thought could start and make a huge impact next season. But, things aren't over yet. But at the same time, when guys decommit and when they enter the transfer portal, they tend not to come back. So.
And quite honestly, and I know this obviously isn't all Houshman's fault, but we went 4-8 last season, and it's just time for a new slate all around. New coaching staff, new players, new personnel, new slate. I'm ready to turn the page on the Scott Frost, Mickey Joseph era, if it even was one, so to speak. Usually eras are a little bit more well remembered, but certainly not this one. And it's interesting because Matt Rule is already hosting his first junior day on Sunday, so that just speaks to, you know, his recruiting and how he kind of wants to already start building the roster. And, I think it's great to see, because he's got a lot of work cut out for him. And, so far with a lot of the offers he's put out in Texas, for example, in this junior day, and, he's showing that he is really committed to building the roster back.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to be, because they're gonna be more hits. There's gonna be more guys that leave in the transfer portal. There's gonna be more decommitments. Actually, Sean Callahan this morning of Husker Online reported that he expects William Watson and also Arnold Barnes to not be part of this class. And he makes it sound like it's a coaching staff judgment and not their judgment. So, I definitely think we're going to see, some different quarterbacks. They've been in communication with the kid that's committed to Washington. They tried with Zane Flores, who basically said no, thanks, but no. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some more movement in this class, and running back and quarterback, we're going to see both of those guys gone, and it sounds like that's a Matt Rule and the coaching staff kind of evaluation deal, and that's good. If those guys aren't going to cut it, then that's the decision that you need to make, and that this is the time to do that. And because the thing about it is you've only got so many scholarships that you can give out, whether you're signing 25 freshmen or 10 to, if you're going to sign a bunch of kids in the transfer portal, then you need to be selective about who you're taking. And if you don't think that these guys are Big Ten level players, you can't waste a scholarship on them. You can't waste a scholarship on anybody because you only got 85 of them. And in the Big Ten, as we saw this season, every single one of those is valuable and needs to be, as a productive spot, at least, as productive as it can possibly be.
We've wasted enough scholarships already on
Yeah.
players, and this is partly how we got into this mess. We don't need to waste any more, and so I'm not surprised about Watson or Barnes. I mean, I know Watson was part of Mark Whipple's kind of recruiting strategy, I guess, if you will. Whipple basically has been recruiting him since he was the coach at UMass since Watson was in sixth grade, and then Barnes Mickey Joseph got him to recruit here, so come here, excuse me. So, I'm not surprised about either of those. And like I said, and I'll keep saying, I'm just ready for a new slate because boy, as a writer, this program definitely gives me a lot of stuff to write about on a daily basis. So, I'm just ready to get this new era fully underway.
Yeah, I think it's it'll be interesting. I'm interested to watch the Malachi Coleman recruitment. I mean, there's talk about him visiting Michigan. I think Oklahoma. Those feel like the three options to me right now: Michigan, Nebraska, Oklahoma. But some others could hop in the mix too. You just never know. But I have a hard time seeing. He's a top 100 kid for a reason. So I feel like if there's not much interest there, then some of these other schools, have got to get back into the mix with this kid, or, like Miami or some of these other ones. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't believe at all that, there's going to be a big lack of interest in Malachi Coleman. And I honestly, we'll see what happens with Nebraska, but I don't know that we're going to see him make a decision here in a few weeks on early signing day. He might take it a little to the longer stretch, and I don't think that's a bad thing for Nebraska. It gives him time to build up relationships with this coaching staff. But the fact that, he's decommitted before they've even hired a receivers coach, makes me worried. So like I said, when guys tend to make this decision, they usually don't come back. I mean, if he was still leaning towards coming to Nebraska, why wouldn't he wait until after meeting with Matt Rule to decommit? So I mean, I do feel, I guess, encouraged that there's still, that contact and that Matt Rule's trying, and that, he can, we'll see potentially he'll get swayed today, Malachi Coleman. But, if there's not a lot of like positive vibes coming out of that, and if he's not going to visit Nebraska in December, at any point with the new staff, then, I wouldn't expect his commitment. And I give it a less than 50-50 chance, honestly, that he's going to come back. I mean, I still think there is a chance for Nebraska, but not a great one.
Yeah, and I'm honestly not too worried if Coleman comes back, if he doesn't come back, just because I feel confident in the staff's ability to evaluate talent. And so, um, you look at a guy like EJ Barthel. He has recruited well. He's been a recruiting coordinator for I believe it was Penn State in 2016. I'm going to have to search the class up here real quick, but I'm confident in the staff's ability to evaluate talent. And, I would rather have a bunch of three-star cohesive pieces working together than a couple four-star recruits that feel out of place. So, I'm just really kind of curious to see how this class shapes up and how much of it will be via the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think we're gonna see a lot. I do think we're gonna see some 2023 commitments. He offered the wide receiver here in Nebraska, the running back out of Texas. There's been Vanderbilt four-star tight end that's committed to Vanderbilt. So There's been a few offers out there. I think he's gonna, flip some of those guys. There's some defensive linemen. The running back from Colorado seems like he would be a golden opportunity to flip that kid, and I think he's ranked quite a bit higher than Arnold Barnes. I'm blanking. I don't have the name in front of me right now, but so there's definitely going to be some more 2023 additions, but I don't.
AJ Newberry.
Yeah, AJ Newberry. But I don't see them getting really this class above 20. I mean, that seems just like I would think somewhere around the 4 or 5 guys. It depends how many people leave in the transfer portal, but Nebraska I would think is at least, I mean, a conservative estimate would be double-digit additions in the transfer portal. I mean, they had them last year. I would think it wouldn't surprise me if there was 20, 25 additions via the transfer portal, by through this combination, and then after, because I believe there's another period after spring ball that you can do it.
Yeah, and quite honestly, Nebraska has had very good recent success in the transfer portal. Torrey, Palmer, Grant, Thompson. I'm trying to think. I'm blanking on some other names right now. Marcus Washington. So, I mean, it's not like they've had a bad track record of going into the transfer portal either, which is, obviously good because it means, you've been able to maximize your talent there. But we'll see. I think this roster is going to look very different come 2023, and I'm curious to see with all the Texas offers and the junior day and stuff like that, how much of an imprint Matt Rule could leave in terms of roster construction before next season begins.
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of shift into this topic with roster questions, O'Shawn Mathis is a guy that declared for the draft. Caleb Tanner declared, or O'Shawn Mathis has talked about it. I think he's going to leave, but he's talked about the draft. Caleb Tanner's declared for the draft. There's still some big roster questions right now. I think the biggest one is, number 11, the quarterback. What's he going to do? Because right now, you can't really have much of a you can't really have a transfer portal kind of strategy, I guess, in terms of Casey Thompson until what he's going to do. And so if he's going to come back, and play quarterback, then I think that obviously lessens the need to go out and get a transfer. If not, if he does leave and decides to go to the draft or whatever, then I think Nebraska, they need to go find a quarterback like now, because there's nobody on this roster that is good enough to start for this team next year. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, these guys can develop, but they need to find, if Casey Thompson can't start
Can
next
they
year.
develop? Can they develop?
Well, I mean, I think they can, but I just don't see any of them starting here.
No.
I mean, so this program, I know that Matt Rule has a reputation as being a builder and da 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 da, but I go across, what somebody, I read something the other day. There is no rebuilding in college football anymore. USC went from 4 wins to the college football playoff in 1 year. LSU was, not even making a bowl game, and now they're in the SEC championship game. So if those guys can do it, there's zero reason Nebraska can't do it. That's just what I believe. I know that Nebraska doesn't have the same, level of talent, that those programs do, but there's no reason this team can't make a bowl game next year. And frankly, that should be the expectation. So you need to find a quarterback who can get in here and can play solid football next year, unless that's Casey Thompson. And I have to feel like a Casey Thompson decision's coming down here pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, and I think, having him back would be absolutely crucial. I mean, it would be tough for him, I think, a little bit next year because his wide receiver room is going to look different. The offensive line, and this is a positive, it's going to probably look different. So, if we get him back, that would be great. And I think having him back definitely kind of helps the program identify what their transfer portal strategy is. So I would expect a decision, and I have no knowledge of this, but I'm just guessing, somewhere in the next couple weeks, just because I think, you know, if he decides to come back, that will give him time to, get ready for spring and get acclimated with his new teammates, down the road.
Yeah, and it's it'd be nice for him to have that time, but if you're Matt Rule in Nebraska, you kind of need to know. You need to know within the next week, in my opinion. You need. I mean, how much time do you need do you need? I mean, you just got to make up your mind, and because these guys need to know who to go out and get. You know what I mean? And if that's if Casey's not going to be here, that's going to change the targets in the transfer portal. But I mean, either way, I think they could use a transfer quarterback because I don't have any faith in the guys that they have in the room right now. I just don't, and I don't think they should either. So I do think that they should look for some other guys, but it's different looking for a guy that you're not going to take Cade McNamara, for instance, like Iowa did if Casey Thompson's coming back. I mean, that makes no sense. But if you look at a guy like there's some other kids that like Colorado, Oregon, a bunch of quarterbacks that have transferred that haven't played a bunch, kind of like Chuba Purdy. I mean, you could take a quarterback like that, but if Casey's coming back, then you need somebody who like a Cade McNamara who's ready to come in and play right away and kind of get you through this next season. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I hope that Casey makes his decision sooner rather than later, or if not, then he might risk losing that starting spot. I mean, that's just the way it works. This is free agency anymore. I mean, this isn't, there's not a ton of time here. They got it. I mean, Cade McNamara, the transfer portal hasn't even officially opened yet, and he's already committed to a school. So, I mean, that tells you how fast this thing is going to, I think we're going to see a bunch more commitments over this weekend. And I think, a bunch of guys are going to be committed before the transfer portal even opens up. So, I mean, like officially opens up, which is December 5th. So, I mean, there's definitely some big question marks there, and they need to be answered soon. But who else, I guess, in terms of the roster questions, who else are you watching in terms of transfers?
Thomas Fedoni. I'm curious to see if he stays or if he goes. I know there was speculation, he removed Nebraska from his Twitter bio and things like that. And you know, he's not a question to me because of his, oh, we're gonna lose this impact tight end because quite frankly, we haven't seen him. It's more so if he goes, now you need a tight end, and who knows with Carney and Rollins. I mean, you may have to rethink your strategy in the tight end room now as well. And I think whether or not Thomas Fedoni comes back is going to be big, not because again of production, but because if he doesn't, you definitely need to make tight end a priority. Um, Especially if you're running the football because they can block as well. So, I mean, Thomas Fedoni is a big name for me. I'll be curious to see if he comes back. And if he doesn't, then Nebraska has another positional need that they need to fill because Vokalek is gone, I believe. Correct? He was a
Yeah,
senior this year. Yeah. So,
yeah, yep.
so that was already an issue before, but before the coaching staff came into play, and so I mean, Thomas Fedoni is a guy I'm watching, and you know, I'll be interested to see who else enters the transfer portal this week. I'm honestly surprised it took until yesterday to see the first kind of mass exodus, so to speak. But you know, um, this roster is going to be very interesting, and you know, Matt Rule has a builder's reputation. He's gonna definitely earn his keep, hopefully, with this program. And also, just to kind of circle back on Thompson for a second, for what it's worth, he decided on January 7th that he was going to come to Nebraska. So, do we want it to play out that long? No. Is it possible? Yeah, but truthfully, I don't think we'll see it that late.
Yeah, and it's different too because we didn't have these time frames last year. We didn't have the time windows and everything. So and his situation in Texas was also a little different in that he didn't really make his decision until they decided to go after Quinn Ewers. So there's a few more things at play, but there's also these time frames that you didn't have last year. So I think it's like this week is going to be like the start of free agency, and there's going to be a crap ton of names in there. And if you're I just don't think you can sit there waiting and
No.
forever knowing if you're what I mean. So
Yeah.
that's my thought on it. But the guy I'm worried about the most, and who AJ Allen, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw his name in the transfer portal like today. I mean, I think we're going to see more names hitting the transfer portal today, and I think he's probably one of the most attractive ones on the roster. His position coach is gone, and so I hope that they can keep the kid, but I'm worried about him more than Thomas Fedoni, and just because I feel like he has the ability to be a big time player and to start next year. And to the idea of losing Houshman and AJ Allen, which it's total speculation on my part, it's just guessing, but if they lost those two guys, that's basically your basically your top two players from the 2023 class. So that's not a great start, but that's what happens when you fire a coach. It is what it is.
See, the only reason I'm worried about Fedoni is just because, we're already having to start a new face at the tight end position, and so I think AJ Allen. And again, I have no inside information, but I think he's probably going to be not with the program. And I think that he'll be able to definitely find somewhere else to play. It was fun to watch him play while he was here, and I hope he stays. But I don't think he is going to be in Nebraska for much longer.
I mean, we'll see. If EJ Barthel's a good recruiter, then he'll be on AJ. That's the number one recruit right now, AJ Allen. That's the guy you got to recruit outside of any running backs that are out there. You got to recruit your own roster. So, if he's a great recruiter, maybe you'll be able to keep AJ Allen. But I'm seeing rumblings on Twitter. It's going to be another rough day, and I think it is. I absolutely think it is. That this is just the type of thing that happens. I mean. USC lost a bunch of guys in the transfer portal last year. They lost quarterback, they lost a really good tight end, really good defensive end. It is what it is. It's just how it works. Guys want to, go where the play for the coaches that recruited them, and that's just how it happens. But I don't think anybody needs to panic right now. Or this is going to happen. This isn't just Nebraska. I mean, let's be clear about that too. This isn't going to be a Nebraska thing. This is going to be from every program across the country. You're going to see guys flooding into the transfer portal, and you're going to be like, that's one of this guy's best players. Yeah, that's why they're going into the portal. They want the NIL money, and I know people are kind of frustrated about that, but look, it is what it is. So we just have to deal with it. It's a new world of college football, and you have to recruit your own roster as much as you have to recruit high school kids anymore.
And for what it's worth, EJ Barthel coached a UConn program that was on the upswing last season. He helped the program go from 3.18 yards per carry to 4.80, and they made a bowl game. He was also part of he actually recruited I believe it was 2016 class that included freshman Miles Sanders at Penn State. So I have very high expectations in Barthel's ability to recruit. I think that's one of the reasons Matt Rule brought him here. So losing Allen would definitely be tough, but I don't think we're going to go barren at the position like we have, quite frankly, in some other years. I feel very confident in the job that EJ Barthel is going to be able to do. And I'm kind of excited to see what kind of element he brings to the running back room because, like I just said, UConn's, best running back was hurt last year, and yet they were still able to make a bowl game with their lower string running back. So that's certainly a testament to Barthel's coaching, and I think he's a good addition on the staff. I said it kind of earlier this week. If you look at some of the staff additions, you have EJ Barthel, Foley, and guys with offensive line experience, guys with recruiting experience and running back experience. There is a clear vision, I think, for this coaching staff, and that is to run the football. And although we may lose, key contributors that we had last year and a guy like Allen prior to his injury, I think the running game will be in good hands, and I think recruiting will be in good hands at the running back position.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. Anthony Grant's another decision that's lingering out there. If he decides to go or come back, Emmett Johnson is a pretty, solid running back too. But I mean, he could leave in the transfer portal. I mean, we just don't know. So it's the next, few days are going to be pretty wild. So hold on to your hats and just, don't freak out too much because for every departure, there's probably going to be some additions. And, we just have to, wait and see how things kind of play out with Matt Rule. And, this was going to be the situation. I mean, no matter who it is. I mean, Luke Fickell got hired at Wisconsin, and they've had just a rash of decommitments, and that's how it works. You have to kind of rebuild your own infrastructure, and I know nobody likes to go through that adjustment period, but that's what happens, and so we'll see how kind of those dominoes fall for the rest of the week. But the other big thing is we've still got a bunch of coaches that haven't been hired. Jake Peets was reported earlier this week, but then, was confirmed and then it wasn't confirmed. And there was all this weird talk that it was contingent on Mickey Joseph, yet nobody seemed to understand what that contingency meant. So I really didn't understand that reporting saying it was contingent on Mickey, but they didn't say if it was about money or about, they wanted to coach together or what. So it's
Of
like,
course, because it gets the clicks. Of course they will. Of course
it
they'll
just
put
drives
something out
me.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
it's rumor season, baby.
I know, but I want to email Sipple, be like, what the hell does this mean, man? I've read
I do
this
too.
4 times and I don't know what it means. So I just, it's like, you have to know what that means. I don't know, whatever. But so
No, you have a
anyways,
valid point to be frustrated because these reporters will be like, this is contingent. Sources said this, that, and all this other BS. And it's just like, just give me the information. I don't need all these fancy words and stuff. Just give me the information. Is he staying? Is he going? What's going on? I'm tired of all these rumors. And ugh. Anyway,
and people are,
back to you.
and then I was talking somewhere and I'm like, well, it's probably based on money because, if Mickey had stayed, he wanted $1 million, and Pete's, some person was like, Pete shouldn't get paid over $500,000. It's like, dude, the guy was making 1.3 million 2 years ago at LSU. You think he's coming to Lincoln for? I mean, it's just, people are just
Matt
totally
Rule is not
clueless.
coming to Nebraska for less than, $9 million. I'm sorry. Like, these are the going rates for coaches. These are what, these are what is expected. And they're lucky they don't have
Yeah, it's
Joe
not like.
Schmo deciding their salaries because they would be like living in a cardboard box.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, the LSU offense wasn't very
Right.
good, and neither was the Rams offense this year. And it's like, yep, and that's all because of Jake Peets. There's no other,
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford's injury has nothing to do with it. It's just the lowly offensive assistant. I mean, people are just, but
Idiots.
it's like, yeah, but he's got to be making over $1 billion there. So I guarantee he's not coming to Nebraska for
Yeah.
less than $1 million. I
Why
mean,
would
that's
he?
just
Why would he?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, hopefully he gets hired, though. I mean, I think that would be another good move. And, I like that some of these other guys do have that offensive line experience. I mean, I am worried about, Donovan Raiola getting retained. And I don't know, maybe it would work better under a different coach. I don't know. But,
That's a,
he's been tagged in a few offers. And so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the way I look at it, the way, if I'm wrong, but Nebraska needs O-line, quarterback, wide receiver, linebacker, and a defensive coordinator, essentially, right?
yeah. And, I think Rayola, is he a good coach? I don't think so. But was the line of his problem last season? No, this was years and years of not being coached correctly. But he's not very good. So I just thought it was funny when I heard you say you were worried about a coach being retained because that's not something you hear too often. You're usually worried about losing coaches. But
Yeah,
I
and
agree. I would share that worry. I would share that worry.
but it's really interesting. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, he does have. It's not like hasn't coached anywhere before. I mean, he was working with the Bears before, and
Yeah, the
he's
Bears suck.
obviously. I know, but um,
That's not all his fault either. But I'm not saying like, waving the Bears flag isn't exactly helping his cause either. But anyway,
So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it seems like Matt Rule does like guys with NFL, kind of backgrounds. I'm not. That was one position wasn't really there. There wasn't really like a Matt Rule guy that you could say, okay, this makes sense. This is a guy that we're really going to see here. So I don't know. It's interesting to see what's going to translate there and with wide receiver too. I know people have been talking about Joe Daly and some of those guys. So we'll see how it all works out. But on defense, I think the big hire is right now defensive coordinator, and I'm really hoping that we haven't heard an announcement because it's going to be Glenn Schumann, the defensive coordinator, co-defensive coordinator, and inside linebackers coach at Georgia. That would make a lot of sense. Obviously, Barrett Root, I don't think, is coming back, so they need a linebackers coach, and they need a defensive coordinator, and he, has done a really great job there. Obviously the defense with Georgia kind of speaks for itself, but he's also served as director of player development, associate director of player personnel, and I think you see a lot of guys on this staff that have kind of player personnel backgrounds, and I think that's going to
development. Yeah.
be really key too with the transfer portal because it's you need to be able to evaluate guys that can come in and help your football team right away, and that's very similar to NFL free agency. So I think it's good that guys kind of have some experience in that regard.
Oh yeah, and this was one of the things that Matt Rule said in his press conference. He wanted development, and he wanted to help guys get to the NFL and get that second contract. He said, and the coaches that he's hiring are kind of lining up with his vision, and I think it's a really positive thing. I think it's a really positive thing, and I'm excited to see once the staff gets settled, what they can do. I really am. I think. Hopefully our defensive coordinator, fingers crossed, is coaching this weekend. So, I'm very, very optimistic about the staff. Losing a guy like Applewhite hurts, but that is part of the game. And, I think that the staff that we have now, I'm confident in. I'll be interested to see if Marcus Satterfeld can, put together consistent offensive performances, because I know there were rumors that he didn't even call the plays in the Clemson in the last two games of the season. So who knows? But I'm just excited to see kind of how these player development backgrounds translate to this program, because I think it's going to be really important, and it lines up with Matt Rule's vision.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking here, how many coaches do we still have to hire? So,
DC.
so I believe you get 10 on field. So I think people have they're saying that we only have 4 because they're counting this. The strength coach is not an on field coaching. So you can have 10 on field assistants. So I believe that Nebraska still has 5 positions they can hire. So I would think they would be linebackers coach, defensive coordinator, O-line, receivers, and quarterbacks, I
I want
believe.
any coach that's coaching this weekend. Any single coach that's coaching this weekend can come to Nebraska. I'm
Well,
hoping.
I'm interested what Jeff Collins is a name. Obviously,
Yeah.
he coached at Georgia Tech. Maybe he wants to take a year off. I'm not sure, but he would be a name I would be interested in for linebackers. It seems like I feel like they need a couple more hires on the defensive side of the ball. But and again, I don't really like having just one guy in the secondary, but I don't know. That's just me. But
I mean, didn't we have one guy in secondary before, and then Mickey, when he was the interim head coach, broke it up into 2 groups? It was Travis Fisher and Bill Bush. Didn't Fisher do
yeah,
safety?
yeah.
Okay. So, I
So
mean, it's not like we haven't done that before, but I agree with you. I don't love the idea of having one coach for that grouping, but we'll see.
I mean, I guess Michigan does it that way. They only have one guy that coaches, and then they have a linebackers coach, a D line coach, and then a true. So then that maybe is a little bit different. And so maybe Nebraska's going to do that where they get, if they have position coaches for each one, and then or maybe they're going to do, one of those things where they have an inside linebackers coach and then somebody that coaches just like the edge players. I don't know.
Mhm.
We'll see. Then there's going to be on field. I think there's going to be a lot of analysts too, in this thing, and so those guys they can do a little bit of coach. They're not supposed to do a lot of coaching, but they still do. So I mean, whatever, it happens everywhere. As we know with our special teams coach from the Scott Frost era, it doesn't always help you, but it
I don't
does
even remember
happen.
his name. Jonathan Rutledge, I think it was. But yeah, it didn't help us
Yeah,
because we still sucked at special teams. We can't even
but
like cheat right, so to speak. We
yeah.
always we always get caught. Anyway,
So yeah, I mean, I am wondering why we haven't heard more of the offensive hires, but maybe some of that has to. I think Rule did say in an interview that Satterfield was going to have a say, for instance, on the Mickey Joseph decision. So I think that he's obviously going to have a say on who coaches quarterbacks and who coaches offensive line and stuff. So maybe there's part of that stuff there, but I just don't know. Like I don't know the Rule coaching tree as well to know anybody this weekend that would be kind of coming here, I guess, per se. But
well, I don't know if I want another coach from his coaching tree because he already has a lot of coaches from his coaching tree, and I'm not saying they're bad coaches, but we fell into this trap with Scott Frost. I thought kind of hired his friends, and now from just looking at the resumes, the Matt
yeah.
Rule coaching
Mhm.
tree is a lot more robust than the Scott Frost coaching tree. So I'm not
And
trying to compare it to that in terms of production, but I
I
would
mean,
just like to see
yeah,
some more outside coaches.
I get what you're saying. I do. I think it's just the nature of the beast because that's just guys, and it's hard to kind of hire kind of random people you're not connected to, I guess, but I understand what you're saying. I also think that I think Scott Frost I think he's a good play caller that fell into a dream situation at UCF, taking over for George O'Leary, and it just kind of, it was the perfect storm, and people thought he knew what he was doing in terms of running a program, and he clearly didn't. At least not this one. Maybe he'll learn from this, and he can do a better job somewhere else in the future. Wouldn't shock me, but
I could see him being a very good offensive coordinator when he gets back to coaching. So, I
yeah,
mean,
I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be surprised at all if he's, back at it next year. But I mean,
no, I wouldn't either.
you look at Tom Herman. I mean, Tom Herman actually like won games at Texas. He had like 3 8 wins. He had 10 win season at Texas. He took Texas to the freaking Sugar Bowl. And his last year there, I think they were 8-3 or 8-4, and he just got hired at Florida Atlantic. So I mean, that's the kind of Scott's going to have to take one of those group of 5 jobs. If he ever gets another head coaching job, he's going to have to start at the group of 5 level. But I do think at some point after he becomes an offensive coordinator, he'll get another chance. But anyway, we don't need to waste time talking about Scott Frost. But
Lord knows we've done enough of that already.
yeah. So, I hope that we see some of these coaching hires come out soon. And, it's interesting, and there's guys in the transfer portal Nebraska's offered. Keegan Johnson from Nebraska, who went to Iowa, just entered the transfer portal yesterday.
We recruited him, right?
Yeah,
Originally.
Yep, we did. Yeah, he got he had some predictions to Nebraska, and then ended up. I don't remember what happened with him, but yeah, he's a guy that we've recruited, and there's a bunch of guys that have kind of gone into the portal that have Baylor offers and stuff. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys that Rule and his staff have connections to, and we'll just have to see. I think we're going to see a lot of transfer portal offers though in the next week or so.
Yeah, and I would expect to, because you're seeing a coach who wants to try to put his mark again on the program, and this is going to be an interesting build. I'm curious to see how this all plays out, and as a result, there are probably going to be more Nebraska players entering the transfer portal. Like Chris said, don't freak out, because this is just what college football is nowadays. Does it suck sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, this means we can get, quality players in the portal, because there are I'm not going to say just as many, but we're not the only program that this is happening to. So we can definitely find quality talent.
Yeah, Texas A&M's lost about 15 players already. So, there's
Yep,
there's talent out there. So,
absolutely.
All right, folks, I guess, do you have any other final thoughts right now, Danny, heading into the weekend?
The basketball team beat Boston College on what was it, Wednesday?
Yeah.
So I thought they looked really good. Casey Tominaga, you might as well call him the next Stephen Curry. No, but he played really well, and I think that was the first game that I've seen in quite a while where the offensive game plan worked like it was supposed to. Like if Wednesday was a kind of game where I saw, you know, okay, this is what Fred Hoiberg's offense is supposed to look like, and it's firing on all cylinders. And so they're 5-3, and then they head into a matchup with Creighton, I believe, on Saturday, and Creighton is going to be tough. So I'm not exactly expecting a win, but I am encouraged to see that we already have 5 wins before conference play, because I think we had 10 wins total last year, if my memory serves me correctly. So the fact that we're already halfway there, I mean, granted, some of the opponents have not been strong, but wins are wins, and you know, I, I'm not sure what this team is going to be able to do in Big Ten play, but when they're on, they're fun to watch.
Yeah, and having Derek Walker back has made a
Oh
huge
yeah,
difference, and
huge.
the offense is kind of flowing really well, and you can see the ball movement. They had 12 3-pointers, they assisted on 21 of 32 field goals, so that's a pretty high percentage. That's some really good basketball, and we'll see if they can keep that up. I believe that game is actually Sunday though against Creighton, so keep an
Sunday.
eye out for that. And then of course we have the Huskers in the NCAA volleyball tournament. They beat Delaware State last night, so they've got more matches to play this weekend, and then of course championship week, and then it'll be even the transfer portal and everything else will be even crazier next week. So make sure you check back in with us on Monday. We'll have all the reactions from everything that happens today through the weekend, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of coaching hires and commitments, decommitments, a bunch of different stuff. So make sure you're checking back in with us on Monday. And, like these videos, go into the comment section and make sure that you subscribe to our channel, telling your Nebraska friends, how to find our content so we can, interact with them too. And, subscribe to the page, and then also check out huskerbigred.com and also thegreatcornholio.org. We've got a bunch of written content covering the Huskers as well from myself and Danny, so we've got you covered from all angles here. So go into the weekend, again, don't freak out about all the stuff, but keep refreshing your Twitter pages a lot, because there's going to be a lot of information. But we're going to get through it, and we're going to get to a bowl game next year. That's my guarantee. So I'm going to wrap up the show with that. And
I'm going to hold you to that, actually,
yeah.
Chris. I'm going to hold you to that.
It's coming. We're going bowling next year. I feel it.
I hope so. It's been too damn long.
So anyway, on that note, everybody have a great weekend, and go Big Red.
Go Big Red.